Dragon Age Origins was rated M for mature by the ESRB and contains blood, intense violence, language, partial nudity, and sexual content. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello everyone, my name is Amaronith and I play games for the internet, and today we are playing Dragon Age Origins. We're doing a codex reading. As you can see, we've let it go a little long. And we're gonna clear that up today. Starting with Article 4, Ash Wraith. Legend has it that when Andraste's ashes were taken into hiding, some of her closest disciples gave themselves to the fire, that their restless souls might remain to guard her final resting place forever. Whether they are the spirits of Andraste's disciples or merely Fade spirits, the temple that houses the sacred urn is filled with wraiths. Created from a burnt corpse, an ash wraith is a powerful and amorphous opponent able to lash and smother while being immune to most physical attacks. Even if it successfully dispersed, it can reform at a later time. Magic is the only real way to fight such a creature, wind and ice attacks being the most useful. They are capable of creating small whirlwinds that are devastating to anyone unfortunate enough to get close. Their touch leaves a person drained. Article 25, Shriek. Scholars call these tall, lean darkspawn the Sharlock, though they are more popularly known as Shrieks because of the ear-splitting cries they emit in battle. Many tales exist of soldiers being unnerved by the sounds of approaching shrieks, cloaked in darkness and never seen until the moment they strike. As horrors of the night, shrieks are renowned for their incredible speed and agility as well as their stealth. They are the assassins of the darkspawn, penetrating the enemy lines and striking their targets using long, jagged blades attached to their forearms to rip their opponent to shreds in seconds. They have been known to employ poison, often drawn from their own blood, and have demonstrated cunning group tactics when attacking in numbers. And Article 28, Giant Spider. Giant spiders tend to appear in old ruins and other places where the veil has become thin because of magical disturbances or a great number of deaths. In such places, spirits and demons pass into the world of the living and attempt to take control over living beings, spiders among them. Not all scholars accept this explanation as the presence of these beasts. Accept this explanation for the presence of these beasts, however. Some claim that the thinning veil allows magic to leak from the Fade, tainting such creatures as these spiders to transform into larger and more potent creatures than they ever would become naturally. While such spiders are known to possess powerful poisons and the ability to fling their webs at opponents in combat, studies of them have been few and the full range of their abilities are unknown. Corrupted spiders are giant arachnids that originally grew in the depths of the deep roads, feeding on numerous species of large bats. When the deep roads were lost to the darkspawn, they began to feed on the numerous genlocks, and their numbers grew exponentially, as did their size. The darkspawn taint has become a permanent part of their system, passed on to their progeny. This has had the effect of increasing their size abnormally as well as their aggressiveness. Some corrupted spiders have made their lairs in surface forests, but most remain underground close to their blight-tainted meals. Article 38, Aodh. Aodh, maybe. Yeah, Aodh. Long ago, a soldier from Guerrin, I'm adding R's and letters where there's none. A soldier from Guerrin was returning home after 20 years at war. He had sold his sword for passage to Denerim and had to make his way through the Brazilian forest with nothing to his name but a single crust of bread. On his way, he met an old blind woodcutter sitting on a tree stump. "Here is someone worse off than myself," said the soldier, and he gave the old man his last scrap of bread. The old man blessed him and gave the soldier his axe in return. The soldier went on his way, and soon night fell. He made his bed in a tree branch and held the woodcutter's axe at his side to ward against beasts and bandits. When the moon was high, he awakened by the sound of weeping. "Show yourself," he shouted, for try as he might, the soldier could find no one nearby. "Help me," spoke the tree, in which he had been sleeping. "A mage transformed me into this shape, and I will never be set free. If you had any pity in you, you would cut me down so that my spirit could go to the Maker." So the soldier took up his axe and struck the tree. The cuts bled like wounds, and soon hot blood covered the axe and burned the soldier's hands. But he held tightly to the axe and felled the tree. The tree shattered when it hit the ground, and from the splinters rose a demon who bowed to the soldier and vanished into the Fade. The soldier was chilled to the bone and could not sleep. In the morning he found that the axe still burned like the blood of the Sylvan, but despite its heat he could not get warm again. They say he ended his days in Guerrin, cutting wood for his 7 fireplaces, shivering and cursing the spirits. Article 46. The Magister's Shield. On the very day the final stone was set into place in the Grand Cathedral of Orlais, Archon Vespasian was assassinated. For 3 days every Magister Lord of the Imperium lived behind a wall of armored guards. When his successor, Hadrius, was finally named Archon, the first Enchanter of the Circle of Minrathous presented him with a gift, a silvery, unadorned chain made of pure lyrium. Enchantments had been worked into the links of the chain so that donning this necklace was like holding up a shield. Blows struck at the wearer and glanced harmlessly away. Unfortunately, Hadrius found that the shield did not protect him against poison nearly so well. Article 61. The Aeonar. The Aeonar. Yeah, let's go with that. When the Imperium occupied the area that is present-day Ferelden, they had 2 sites dedicated to magical experimentation at the extreme ends of the Imperial Highway. The southern one was the Fortress of Ostagar, which looked out over the Qunari wilds. The northern one was Aeonar, though the exact location is now a secret known only to a handful of Templars. Whatever it was that the Templars were trying to discover at Aeonar, their work was never completed. The fortress was overrun by the disciples of Andraste upon hearing the news of her death. According to legend, it was a massacre, eerily silent, for the invaders caught the mages while all but one of them were in the Fade. The site was left structurally sound but spiritually damaged. Probably because of this, the Chantry chose to put it to use as a prison. Accused, Maleficarum, and apostates are held in the confines of the Aeonar. Those who have a powerful connection to the Fade, and particularly to demons, will inevitably attract something across the veil, making the guilty somewhat easier to tell from the innocent. From Of Fires, Circles, and Templars, A History of Magic in the Chantry, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Article 71. Chantry Hierarchy. The Divine is the titular head of the Chantry, although, since the schism split the Imperial Chantry into its own faction, there are now, in fact, 2 Divines at any one time. One Divine, informally called the White Divine, is a woman housed in the Grand Cathedral in Val Royeaux. The other, known as the Black Divine, is a man housed in the Argent Spire in Minrathous. Neither divine recognizes the existence of the other, and the informal names are considered sacrilegious. No matter the gender, a divine is addressed as Most Holy or Your Perfection. Beneath the rank of divine is the Grand Cleric. Each Grand Cleric presides over numerous chantries and represents the highest religious authority for their region. They travel to Val Royeaux when the College of Clerics convenes, but otherwise remain where they are assigned. All Grand Clerics are addressed as Your Grace. Beneath the Grand Cleric is the mother, or in the Imperial Chantry, the father. If a mother is in charge of a particular chantry, revered is appended to her title. These are the priests responsible for administering to the spiritual well-being of their flock. A mother or revered mother is addressed as Your Reverence. Brothers and sisters form the rank and file of the Chantry and consists of the 3 main groups: affirmed, initiates, and clerics. Affirmed are the lay brethren of the Chantry, those regular folk who have turned to the Chantry for succor. Often they are people who have led a difficult or irreligious life and have chosen to go into seclusion, or even orphans and similar unfortunates who were raised into the Chantry life. They affirm to take care of the Chantry and are in turn afforded a life of quiet contemplation, no questions asked. Pardon me. Only folk who take vows and become initiates. These are men and women in training, whether in academic knowledge or in the martial skills of a warrior. All initiates receive an academic education, although only those who seek to become Templars learn how to fight in addition. Clerics are the true academics of the Chantry, those men and women who have dedicated themselves to the pursuit of knowledge. They are often found in Chantry archives, sages presiding over libraries of books and arcane knowledge. The most senior of these clerics is placed in charge of such archives or given the title Elder, although such a rank is still beneath that of Mother. All other brothers and sisters are addressed simply by noting their title before their name, such as Brother Genitivi. From a Guide for Ambassadors from Rivain. Article 72. Templars. Often portrayed as stoic and grim, the Order of Templars was created as the martial arm of the Chantry. Armed with the ability to dispel and resist magic in addition to their formidable combat talents, the Templars are uniquely qualified to act as both a foil for apostates, mages who refuse to submit to the authority of the Circle, and the first line of defense against the dark powers of blood mages and abominations. While mages often resent the Templars as symbols of the Chantry's control over magic, the people of Thedas see them as saviors and holy warriors, champion of all that is good, armed with piety enough to protect the world from the ravages of foul magic. Blech, sorry. In reality, the Chantry's militant arm looks first for skilled warriors with unshakable faith in the Maker, with a flawless moral center as a secondary concern. Templars must carry out their duty with an emotional distance, and the Order of Templars prefers soldiers with religious fervor and absolute loyalty over paragons of virtue who might question orders when it comes time to make difficult choices. The Templars' power derives from the substance lyrium, a mineral believed to be the raw element of creation. While mages use lyrium in their arcane spells and rituals, Templars ingest the primordial mineral to enhance their abilities to resist and dispel magic. Lyrium use is regulated by the Chantry, but some Templars suffer from lyrium addiction, the effects of which include paranoia, obsession, and dementia. Templars knowingly submit themselves to this treatment in the service of the Order and the Maker. It is in this sense of the ruthless piety that most frightens the mages when they draw the Templars' attention. When the Templars are sent to eliminate a possible blood mage, there is no reasoning with them, and if the Templars are prepared, the mage's magic is all but useless. Driven by their faith, the Templars are one of the most feared and respected forces in Thedas. From Patterns Within Form, by Halden, 1st Enchanter of Starkhaven, 880 Blessed. Culture and History. Article 103. The Anderfels. The Anderfels are a land of shocking extremes. It is the most desolate place in all the world, for two blights have left great expanses of the steppes so completely devoid of life that corpses cannot even decay there. No insect or grub will ever reach them. It is a land filled with wonders like the Meridain, with its gigantic white statue of Our Lady carved into its face, her hands outstretched and bearing an eternal flame, or Wysopt Fortress with its walls of living rock towering over the desolate plains below. The Anders, too, are a people of extremes, the most devout priests and the most deadly soldiers, the poorest nation in the world and the most feared. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genitivi. Article 115. Denerim. When anyone in Ferelden speaks of going to the city, they inevitably mean Denerim. There is no other place in the kingdom which rivals it, not in size, population, wealth, or importance. It is the seat of the Theron family, the capital of Ferelden, the largest seaport, and by ancient tradition the meeting place of the Landsmeet. As well, Denerim was the birthplace of Andraste, one of them anyway, as several other sites claim to have been the prophet's early home, including Jader in Orlais. The Chantry takes no stance on which site's claim is valid, but it is well known that Andraste was Ferelden by birth. When visiting the pilgrimage site in Denerim, it is inadvisable to mention Jader at all. The city rests at the foot of the Dragon's Peak, a solitary mountain scarred by ancient lava flows. During Andraste's lifetime, it reputedly filled the sky with a great column of black ash and sent burning rock raining down as far as the Free Marches, but it is now considered extinct. Some believe it merely sleeps and will again darken the sky with ash and fire when the last Ferelden king dies, but this is highly unlikely. Pardon me. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. Article 116. Dragon Cults. Let us suggest for the moment that a high dragon is simply an animal, a cunning animal to be sure, but in possession of no true self-awareness or sentience. There has not, after all, been a single recorded case of a dragon attempting to communicate or perform any act that could not likewise be attributed to a clever beast. How then does one explain the existence of so-called dragon cults throughout history? One dragon cult might be explainable, especially in the light of the reverence of the old gods in the ancient Tevinter Imperium. In the wake of the First Blight, many desperate imperial citizens turned to the worship of real dragons to replace the old gods who had failed them. A dragon, after all, was a god figure that they could see. It was there, as real as the archdemon itself, and, as evidence makes clear, did offer a degree of protection to its cultists. Other dragon cults could be explained in the light of the first. Some cult members may have survived and spread the word. The worship of the old gods was as widespread as the Imperium itself. Certainly such secrets could have made their way into many hands, but there have been reports of dragon cults even in places where the Imperium never touched, among folks who had never heard of the old gods or had any reason to. How does one explain them? Members of a dragon cult live in the same lair as a high dragon, nurturing and protecting its defenseless young. In exchange, the high dragon seems to permit those cultists to kill a small number of these young in order to feast on draconic blood. That blood is said to have a number of strange long-term effects, including bestowing greater strength and endurance, as well as an increased desire to kill. It may breed insanity as well. Nevarran dragon hunters have said these cultists are incredibly powerful opponents. The changes in the cultists are a form of blood magic, surely. But how did this symbiotic relationship between the cult and the high dragon form in the first place? How did the cultists know to drink the dragon's blood? How did the high dragon convince them to care for its young, or know that they would? Is there more to draconic intelligence than we heretofore have guessed at? No member of a dragon cult has ever been taken alive, and what accounts exist from the days of the Nevarran hunters record only mad rants and impossible tales of godhood. With dragons only recently reappearing and still incredibly rare, we may never know the truth, but the question remains. From Flame and Scale by Brother Florian, Chantry Scholar, 928 Dragon. Article 119. Culture of Ferelden. The Fereldens are a puzzle. As a people, they are one bad day away from reverting to barbarism. They repelled invasions from Tevinter during the height of the Imperium with nothing but dogs and their own obstinate disposition. They are the coarse, willful, dirty, disorganized people who somehow gave rise to our prophet, ushered in an era of enlightenment, and toppled the greatest empire in history. There are few things you can assume safely in dealing with these people. First, they value loyalty above all things, beyond wealth, beyond power, beyond reason. Second, although they have nothing in their entire country which you are likely to think at all remarkable, they are extremely proud of their accomplishments. Third, if you insult their dogs, they are likely to declare war. And finally, the surest sign that you have underestimated the Fereldens is that you think you have come to understand them. Empress Celine I of Orlais, in a letter to her newly appointed ambassador to Denerim. Article 121. Geography of Ferelden. The Kingdom of Ferelden is the southernmost civilized nation in Thedas, although some scholars dispute that claim to civilization. It is still perhaps the most physically isolated of all the kingdoms of Thedas. To the east is the Amaranthine Ocean, to the north the Waking Sea, and to the south the Qunari Wilds, which in the summer months are a vast peat bog, and in the winter become a treacherous labyrinth of iced-over waterways. The Frostback Mountains guard the western border, and only a narrow plain between the mountains and the sea allows travel between Ferelden and Orlais. Most of the land in the central portion of the kingdom is called the Banorn, is open plains. These are crossed by the remnants of an ancient Tevinter highway that once connected Val Royeaux with Ostagar. On the edge of the Qunari Wilds. The western part of Ferelden is dominated by Lake Calenhad, a huge caldera filled by the runoff of glaciers from nearby mountains. Lake Calenhad is home to the famed Fortress of Redcliffe, as well as the Circle Tower, which houses Ferelden's Circle of Magi. In the east is the vast Brazilian forest, which the superstitious locals profess to be haunted, and from which rises the Dragon's Peak, a solitary mountain that guards the capital city of Denerim. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. Article 123. Politics of Ferelden. To our neighbors, Ferelden seems utterly chaotic. Unlike other monarchies, power does not descend from our throne. Rather, it rises from the support of the freeholders. Each freehold chooses the ban or Arl to whom it pays allegiance. Typically, this choice is based on proximity of the freehold to the lord's castle, as it's worthless to pay for the upkeep of soldiers who will arrive at your land too late to defend it. For the most part, each generation of freeholders casts its lot with the same ban as their fathers did. But things can and do change. No formal oaths are sworn, and it is not unheard of, especially in the prickly central Banorn, for bands to court freeholders away from their neighbors. A practice which inevitably begets feuds that last for ages. Tierns arose from amongst the bands, war leaders who in antiquity had grown powerful enough to move other bands to swear fealty to them. There were many Tierns in the days before King Calenhad, but he succeeded in whittling them down to only two, Guerrin in the south and Highever to the north. These Tierns still hold the oaths of bands and Arls to who they may call upon in the event of war or disaster, and similarly, the Tierns still hold responsibility for defending those sworn to them. The Arls were established by the Tierns, given command of strategic fortresses that could not be overseen by the Tierns themselves. Unlike the Tierns, Arls have no bands sworn to them and are simply somewhat more prestigious than bands. The king is, in essence, the most powerful of the Tierns, although Denerim was originally the Tirnir of the king. It has since been reduced to an Arling, as the king's domain is now all of Ferelden. But even the king's power must come from the bands. Nowhere is this more evident than during the Landsmeet, an annual council for which all of the nobles in Ferelden gather, held for almost 3,000 years except odd interruptions during blights and invasions. The sight of a king asking for and working to win the support of lesser men is a source of constant wonder to foreign ambassadors. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Article 130, Nevarra. The fourth time I attempted to cross the border into Nevarra from Orlais, and was turned back by chevaliers. I decided to take a more roundabout path, a ship back to Ferelden, and then another to Nevarra. The outcome was more than worth the trouble. The whole country is filled with artistry, from statues of heroes that litter the streets and even the meanest villages to the glittering golden College of Magi in Cumberland. Perhaps nowhere is more astonishing than the vast necropolis outside Nevarra city. Unlike most other followers of Andraste, the Navarrans do not burn their dead. Instead, they carefully preserve the bodies and seal them in elaborate tombs. Some of the wealthiest Navarrans began construction of their own tombs while quite young, and these become incredible palaces, complete with gardens, bathhouses, and ballrooms, utterly silent, kept only for the dead. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. Article 151, The Qunari. Anyone who travels far enough to the north will eventually encounter the Qunari, white-haired, bronze-skinned giants, a head taller than a man with frighteningly calm demeanors and a sort of sparkling fire behind their eyes. For quite a long time, people believed that all Qunari were male, or that their men and women were simply indistinguishable. It was not until the Blessed Age that diplomats from Rivain were allowed, however briefly, to visit Parvolan, and there they discovered that Qunari females do exist in abundance and are quite easily recognized. The Rivaini say that all Qunari have a certain kindness to them, or at least a conspicuous lack of cruelty, although I did not observe the creatures closely enough to evaluate their character. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. Article 153, Rivain. Nowhere in my travels, not in the heart of the Imperium, nor the streets of Orzammar, have I felt so much as outsider as in Rivain. The chant of light had never truly reached the ears of these people. The years they spent under the thumb of the Qunari left most of the country zealous followers of the Qun. But resistance to the chant goes deeper than the Qunari war. The Rivaini refuse to be parted from their seers, wise women who are in fact hedge mages, communicating with spirits and actually allowing themselves to become possessed. The Chantry prohibition against such magical practices violates millennia of local tradition. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. Article 155, The Legend of the Juggernaut. The arm of the Imperium is long. Once it reached even this forest, in a time when the barbarian tribes of the Clane still ruled the land. The Tevinter Magisters fought to take it from them inch by inch if need be, using terrible magic. The Magister Hierarchy brought an army to this forest led by Alaric, his friend and general. For Alaric, Hierarchy fashioned a suit of the finest armor and fused it with lyrium and his own blood magic, and named it Juggernaut after the unstoppable giant golems guarding the gates of Enrathus. Thus armed did Alaric win many victories against the Clane. When defeat came, it came from within. Alaric's own lieutenants rose up against him, jealous of the favor he had curried with the Magisters, and eager to take the Juggernaut armor from him. Alaric was slain, and as each successor gained the armor, the other lieutenants turned against him instead. The Tevinter outpost fell to vicious infighting. In a fury, Magister Hierarchy voyaged to the outpost and slew the last 3 lieutenants. The Clane, however, were already approaching the outpost in force. The barbarian chieftain of the Clane desired the fabled armor himself, and even with all his power, Hierarchy could not hope to stand against them all. Instead, Hierarchy used the last of his own life force to cast a spell of blood magic that bound demons to the bodies of the 3 dead lieutenants, as well as Hierarchy's own lifeless corpse. These bound revenants hid the pieces of the Juggernaut armor, and although the barbarians sacked the outpost, the chieftain found neither the armor nor the revenants. The Juggernaut armor's legend lives on, and more than one brave soul has ventured into the depths of the Brazilian forest in search, never to return. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Article 156, Geography of Thedas. Thedas is bonded to the east by the Thedas is bounded to the east by the Amaranthine Ocean, to the west by the Tirishen Forest and the Hunterhorn Mountains, to the south by the snowy wastes that lie beyond the Orkney Mountains, and to the north by the Dornak Forest. The word Thedas is Tevinter in origin, originally used to refer to the lands that bordered the Imperium. As the Imperium lost its stranglehold on conquered nations, more and more lands became Thedas, until finally people applied the name to the entire continent. The northern part of Thedas is divided amongst the Anderfels, the Tevinter Imperium, Antiva, and Rivain, with the islands held by the Qunari just off the coast. Central Thedas consists of the Free Marches, Nevarra, and Orlais, with Ferelden to the south. What lies beyond the snowy wastes is a mystery. The freezing temperatures and barren land have kept even the most intrepid cartographers at bay. Similarly, the western reaches of the Anderfels have never been fully explored, even by the Anders themselves. We do not know if the dry steppes are shadowed by mountains, or if they extend all the way to a nameless sea. There must be other lands, continents, or islands, perhaps across the Amaranthine or north of Parvolin, for the Qunari arrived in Thedas from somewhere, but beyond that deduction we know nothing. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genitivi. Article 167, Connor Guerrin. I feel like I'm sleeping, but I guess I'm not. While most of the bands and Arls of Ferelden cart their children with them to the Landsmeet in the interests of eventually marrying them off, Connor has spent his entire life at Redcliffe, and it's hardly surprising. The child possessed the gift of magic. By law, he should have been taken to the Circle of Magi at the first sign, abdicating his claim to Redcliffe. Instead, the boy was kept out of public view and his magic hushed up, with disastrous results. All mages are beacons that attract the attention of Fade spirits. Because of this, they are trained and tested by the Circle to ensure that they can withstand attacks from malevolent Fade creatures that seek entry into the waking world. Untrained Connor drew the attention of a powerful demon that tore the veil asunder. He was freed from the demon's power at a terrible price. The costs were... Game, that's not what happened! Game? According to this, he was freed from the demon's power at a terrible price, the cost of his mother's life. Connor himself will be sent to the Circle, but he will no longer endanger innocent people. That's not what happened. So I think my game is glitching. Article 173. Brother Ferdinand Genitivi. As it is the duty of all true sons of the Chantry to make the chant heard from every corner of the world, I made it my mission to find as many corners of the world as possible. The Maker can hardly expect us to do one without the other. Excerpt from In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. Brother Genitivi is one of the Chantry's most well-known scholars, primarily on the basis of the stories he has published, which many of his contemporaries dismiss as fanciful, of his travels across the length and breadth of Thedas. His travels in rather too curious nature led him to a study of folklore, which gave him the notion that he could track down the most debated of all artifacts, the Urn of Sacred Ashes. He announced that he found what he appeared to be a trail of the urn left in the legends of the regions through which it had passed from Minrathous on its way into hiding. Article 178. Arlessa sold. For the one who delivers the sacred ashes of Our Lady will have the esteem of Redcliffe and all of the riches it is in my power to grant. The Arling of Redcliffe was a source of constant trouble for Emperor Rivain during the occupation. It was rumored that since each new report sent the Emperor into fit of Since each new report sent the Emperor into a fit of violent rage, his court had taken to poisoning messengers before they could deliver their accounts. Isolde family was the 10th to be given the difficult task of governing Redcliffe, and since most of the previous Arls had either been murdered by their bands or beheaded by the Emperor, they did not approach the job with a great deal of enthusiasm. Isolde met Eamon, not realizing he was the rightful heir to her father's domain, and quickly became smitten with him for being a part of the resistance. Never mind that it was her family he was resisting. Perhaps a bit too romantic for her own good, she insisted upon staying with Eamon when the rest of her family was driven out. When her only son began to show signs of possessing magic, Isolde tried to cover it up, knowing that he would be taken from her by the Circle if found out. She hired an apostate mage to tutor him in secret, knowing that her tutor was being paid to poison her. Little knowing that her tutor was being paid to poison her husband. Eamon fell ill, and Connor, desperate, tried to use magic to save his father. Magic that attracted the attention of a demon. She gave her life to free Connor from demonic influence. That is not what happened! I saved the whole family, damn it! This game is lying. And I'm mad about it. Article 179, Leliana. Here with you, knowing the freedom of the road and the uncertainty of tomorrow, I feel alive again. A lay sister of the Chantry who can beat the stuffing out of trained mercenaries would be notable enough, but one who also claims to have been sent to fight the Darkspawn by the Maker himself is unusual, to say the least. She joined Alistair and Faria in Lothering, insisting that she would prove useful. There is more to Leliana that had ever been apparent in Lothering, however. She spent much of her life as a bard in Orlais, a minstrel, assassin, and spy employed by the nobles of Val Royeaux in their elaborate games of intrigue. Her decision to join the Chantry was not merely the product of her disenchantment with the life of the bard. Leliana was framed by her bard master and fled to escape execution as a traitor. Article 183, Shale. What can I say? I have a heart of stone. The golems of Orzammar once made up the vanguard of the dwarven army, holding back the tides of darkspawn that flooded out of the deep roads, but the art of making them was lost, and many of them succumbed to wear and damage in the battle. Shale has no memories of either the time spent fighting in the deep roads or of coming to Honleith, only a few spotty and bitter recollections of its last master. Varia unearthed Shale's control rod and awakened it, adding a bitter, malfunctioning golem to the menagerie of companions. Article 187, Wynne. It's perfectly all right to think about the many indignities you plan to inflict on your enemies, but to talk about it, well, that would be unladylike. Wynne's talent became apparent early on, particularly her skill at healing magic. She was well liked by her mentors and was recognized as an exceptionally gifted student. Even the Templars who watched her could not deny that she represented the best the Circle had to offer. She was an intelligent young woman who possessed quite a quiet confidence and maturity beyond her years. She spent many years mentoring apprentices within the Circle, and her peers thought so highly of her that she was asked to be First Enchanter Irving's successor, but she refused, saying that she had no desire to work in the upper echelons. When word reached the tower of King Caelan's call to arms, Wynne volunteered to go to Ostagar. For Wynne, the printed word is a window to true understanding. A scholar by heart, she feels that what a people commit to page is sacred by definition. I believe I've read this, so... Article 199, The Legend of Calenhad, Chapter 3. Calenhad's legend tells that Lady Shaina harbored a love for her king that went beyond friendship, a love that she had kept secret out of her sense of duty and honor. When offered a love potion by a witch in disguise, a witch who would later turn out to be the vengeance-seeking sister of Simeon, Lady Shaina gave in to temptation. She used the potion on Calenhad, but Queen Marin discovered the two of them together that night and, broken-hearted, fled Denerim to return to her father. She told Mirrodin everything, and he angrily threatened to revoke his support of Calenhad and begin a new civil war. and begin anew the civil war. It is said that Lady Shayna felt remorseful at her manipulation of her best friend's heart, and confessed her use of forbidden magic to the court. Although her life was forfeit, Calenhad forgave Lady Shayna for what she had done and refused to have her executed. Mirrodin furiously roused the other Arls against Calenhad and Lady Shayna, and it was not long before Ferelden stood on the brink of civil war once again. Against Calenhad's orders, Lady Shayna went alone to Merin to plead for peace and plead her case, only to be found out by Mirrodin and slain. Angered but also saddened, Calenhad challenged Mirrodin to an honor duel, a fight neither of them wanted but both knew was necessary. And Mirrodin was slain. The death of the king's greatest ally and important Arl was too much for the young kingdom to bear. The other Arls would not back down in their claims against Calenhad. The threat of civil war rose once again. Calenhad went to his wife one last time then, although none knew what he said to her, and then simply vanished. He left with Merin a proclamation abdicating his throne in favor of his son the queen carried in her belly, who eventually ascended to the throne as King Wayland I. The king credited with establishing the Therin dynasty, lasting to this day. Calenhad would never reappear. The legend of Calenhad himself only grew over time as stories and sightings multiplied, even long after the point when Calenhad could possibly still be alive. Some say he disappeared into the Qunari wilds or went to live with the dwarves, or even became a monk in the reclusive Chantry order. The Chantry named Calenhad one of the Anointed in 788 Storm. Calenhad's sword, Nementos, was left with Merin and became a symbol of Ferelden kingship over the next century. Rumors of its magical powers grew, and when it was lost in the ambush that killed King Ferelden in 824 Blessed, it was seen as a great blow to the Therin line. Several false swords have appeared since that time, but never has the true sword resurfaced. From The Legend of Calenhad by Brother Heron, Chantry Scribe, 810 Blessed. Okay. Article 203, The History of the Chantry, Chapter 3. It is said that at the Battle of Valarian Fields, Mafarath stood and looked out over his armies. He had conquered the southern reaches of the greatest empire the world had ever known, and built splintered barbarian clans into a force to be feared. With pride in his heart, he turned to congratulate his men and found that they had turned from him. Mafarath fell to the evil of jealousy. After all that he had done, his wife was the one to receive all the glory. He saw his wife's power and influence and tired of his place as second husband below the Maker. His heart swelled with fury. If he had conquered just to have his wife wrested from him by a forgotten god and a legion of faith-hungry rebel, then perhaps this war was not worth the trouble. Here, history and the chant of light come apart. History tells us that Mafarath looked north to the Central Imperium and saw nothing but more war against a rapidly regrouping army, and he despaired. The chant of light holds that Mafarath chafed with jealousy of the Maker, and jealousy of the glory that Andraste received, although it was he who led the armies. Mafarath traveled to the imperial capital of the Menrathas to speak with the Archon Hissarion. There he offered up his wife to the Imperium in return for a truce that would end hostilities once and for all. The Archon, eager to put down the voice of the prophet that stirred his own people against him, agreed. Mafarath led Andraste into an ambush where she was captured by Imperial agents, putting an end to her exalted march. Crowds of loyalists stood in the central square of Menrathas to watch Andraste's execution. By command of the Archon, she was burned at the stake in what the Imperium believed to be the most painful punishment imaginable. According to the Chantry, however, Andraste was instead purified and made whole by the flames, ascending to life at her Maker's side. By all accounts, there was only silence where they expected screams. At the sight of the prophet burning, the crowds were filled with a profound guilt, as if they had participated in a great blasphemy. So moving was the moment that the Archon himself drew his sword and thrust it into the prophet's heart, ending her torment and leaving those assembled to consider the weight of what they had seen. Whereas the execution of Andraste was meant to be a symbol of defeat for the faith of the Maker, in truth it is all it all but sealed the fate of the worship of the old gods and paved the way for the spread of the Maker's chant. From Tales of the Destruction of Thedas, by Brother Genitivi, Chantry Scholar. Article 204, The History of the Chantry, Chapter 4. The crowds present at the death of Andraste were right to feel despair. It is believed that the prophet's execution angered the Maker, and he turned his back on humanity once more, leaving the people of Thedas to suffer in the dark. In these dark times, mankind scrambled for a light, any light. Some found comfort in demonic cults that promised power and riches in return for worship. Others prayed to the old gods for forgiveness, begging the great dragons to return to the world. Still others fell so low as to worship the Darkspawn, forming vile cults dedicated to the exaltation of evil in its purest form. It is said that the world wept as its people begged for a savior who would not come. Andraste's followers, however, did not abandon her teachings when she died. The cult of Andraste rescued her sacred ashes from the courtyard in Minrathous after her execution, stealing them away to a secret temple. The location of that temple has long been lost, but the ashes of Andraste served as a symbol of the enduring nature of the faith in the Maker, that humanity could earn the Maker's forgiveness despite its grievous insult to him. With time, the cult of Andraste spread and grew, and the chant of light took form. Sing this chant in the four corners of Thedas, it was said, and the world would gain the Maker's attention at last. As the chant of light spread, the cult of Andraste became known as the Andrastian Chantry. Those who converted to the Chantry's beliefs and found its mission to spread Andraste's word. Those who converted to the Chantry's beliefs found it their mission to spread Andraste's word. There were many converts, including powerful people in the Imperium and in the city-states of what is now Orlais. Such was the power of the Maker's word that the young King Drakon undertook a series of exalted marches meant to unite the city-states and create an empire solely dedicated to the Maker's will. The Orlesian Empire became the seat of the Chantry's power, the Grand Cathedral in Val Royeaux the source of the movement that birthed the organized Chantry as we know it today. Drakon, by then Emperor Drakon I, created the Circle of Magi, the Order of the Templars, and the Holy Office of the Divine. Many within the Chantry revere him as nearly equal with Andraste herself. The modern Chantry is a thing of faith and beauty, but it is also a house of necessity, protecting Thedas from powerful forces that would do it harm. Where the Grey Wardens protect the world from the blights, the Chantry protects mankind from itself. Most of all, the Chantry works to earn the Maker's forgiveness so that one day he will return and transform the world into the paradise it was always meant to be. From Tales of the Destruction of Thedas, by Brother Genitivi, Chantry Scholar. Article 206, Dane and the Werewolf. Let me sing of heroes and honor lost and found, of monsters and men in all forms, of Dane, a hunter without peer, feared by the forests of Ferelden, who one autumn morn spied a heart of pure white in beam of the warmest sun, a prize for huntsman's spear. Through the green wood they ran, hart and hunter, bringing the stagged spear at last in long-forgotten grove. Heedless that the chase had waked a hunger in the golden wood, a werewolf, a creature with the mind of man, lured by the hunt, had come forth to lay claim to the heart as rightful tribute, drawn by the scent of cooling blood. In the silence the two hunters held Dane spear-armed against the wolf with all his brood, knew with sinking heart that he was lost. Steeled for the winding roads of the Fade, then the beast spoke, human-like in voice, "You have taken this stag from my woods and my pack, but nothing comes without a cost." The wolf pack circled ever closer, and he who felled the boars and bears with his bright blade knew fear. They spoke his name in roars, like gravestones offering a beast's bargain. Die here, huntsman, alone and forgotten, or take my place amongst the wolves, as I take your place amongst men. Thus a bargain struck, and Dane the wolf pack served in wolfen form, and the werewolf to his family sped, as Dane 1 year and a day. all told, but some things cannot be repent, some coinage cannot be unspent. When hearts are wagered, a fisher rent. From the Saga of Dane and the Werewolf, as recorded by the minstrel Ukam, 485 black. Article 222. Journal of the Tranquil. Some laugh at me, I no longer mind. Once upon a time I studied as they did. I learned under the tutelage of an enchanter and attempted to master the art of bending magic to my will. And while I did well enough, I know that I struggled. I saw the way the enchanter looked at me, the sidelong glances of worry and disappointment. While other apprentices were conjuring fire, I could barely light a candle. I was frightened of magic. When I was a boy, my grandmother regaled me with tales of the terrible Flemeth, the witch of the wilds. She told me of the Magisters and how their evil magic infected the world with darkspawn. She told me of demons and how they were drawn to the dreams of those who possessed magic like moths to a flame. She told me all these things because, she said, the talent ran in our family's blood. And so it ran in mine. All my young life I had dreaded the thought, prayed to the Maker that I was not so cursed. But I knew otherwise. Deep in my heart I knew. When the Templars came to our home, I knew. The Mage's Tower was terrifying, full of secrets and danger. The Templars glared at me as if I could spring full into abomination before their very eyes. Full into an abomination. Before their very eyes. My enchanter patiently attempted to teach me to marshal my willpower, my only defense should a demon attempt to enslave me. But it was no use. How many nights did I cry myself to sleep in that dark and lonely place? Then my harrowing came at last, my final test. Face a demon, they said, or submit to the rite of tranquility. They would sever my connection to the Fade, and thus I would never dream, and no demon could ever touch me. But I would also be unable to do magic, and I would never feel an emotion ever again. Facing the demon was certain death, so my choice was easy. It was not so painful. Now I serve in other ways. We Tranquil manage the archives, we run the tower, purchase the supplies, and maintain the accounts. Our condition also allows us to use the magical element lyrium without ill effect, and thus we are the ones who enchant the magical items. We are the merchants who sell these items to those who the circle permits, and the coin from those sales provides the circle's wealth. Thus we Tranquil are vital. The young and old may stare at me, ill at ease, but they would be worse off without me. They may think me a failure, but there is no horror from me now. No horror for me now. I feel no fear of what I am. The shadows are merely shadows, and I am content. Edin the Meek, Tranquil of the Circle of Magi of Starkhaven in the Free Marches. Article 224. The Journal of Enchanter Wilhelm. 13 Pluitanus. The interrogation of the demon is going well. It is rather fascinating, providing that what it is saying is true. I have sent all my research so far to First Enchanter Arden, and while he is concerned about my safety, he does not think there is a reason to stop just yet. All I hope is that the Templars do not discover what I am doing. How will I ever find another way to deal with demonic possession if the Chantry does not let us research it? 20 Alluvesta. There we go. Young Matthias nearly wandered down here again today, and this time I forgot to leave the barrier up. I believe I will key the defenses to ignore anyone of my blood. I would rather have the boy stumble into the laboratory than have him killed by my forgetfulness. Poor lad, all he wants is to know why his father spent so much time beneath the tower. I will spend more time with him soon, I swear it. 28 Alluviesta. Shale is acting strangely. I wonder if I should discontinue my experiments upon it. I am so near a breakthrough, I am certain. Perhaps it is best if I focus on the demon. 2 Matronalis. The demon almost managed to get away again. Tricky. I shall have to be more careful. Young Eamon sent a letter asking me to return to Redcliffe. Shall have to consider it. Soon. 11. Matronalis. Could it be? What an intriguing discovery, especially considering that the demon was attempting to keep me from it at all costs. Or did it lead me to that information by seeming to deny it from me? I must discover the truth. 19. Umbralia. I think it is time to dismiss this demon. It is too dangerous for me to continue holding it, and I cannot discount the possibility that it is having some influence over the golem. Or is it my experiments? I will try to deactivate Shale for the time being, and then deal with the demon once and for all. Let it end here. There are no further entries. From the Journal of Enchanter Wilhelm. Alright, and that is all to be read from this. Thank you for joining me in that Codex reading. It was very enlightening, given that the Lady Isolde is still alive and, in fact, did not give her life to save Connor. What the fuck, game? I'm still mad about that. And I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.